Hi, I'm Bill Murphy. I'm at the Complete Angler here in Darien, and today we're going to be tying some of these short fin squids with our product Easy Body. All right. So today we're going to be using a large pearl Easy Body, and we're going to be doing the short fin squid as I mentioned earlier. A couple things that we're going to need is monofilament thread, a decent pair of scissors, some magic marker, different colors, permanent markers, and some glues. And where's my glue? I do like to use the E6000 cement for gluing on the eyes, because the problem is always you have a round surface on the tube and you're trying to put a flat surface as in an eye and trying to secure that to the tubing, which is rather difficult. So I've overcome that by using a thick glue and some paper clips. Real simple technique, so we'll get to that in a minute. I've prepped some hooks with just some hackle off the tail to be the squid legs and tentacles. And I've also gone ahead and pre-prepared gluing some eyes onto the tubing, cut them to size so that I'm ready to roll. And I do a whole bunch of them so that anytime I sit down at the vise, they're all ready to go. I do them with different colors, plain, and I also do them with just a plain natural white, just like this, for when you want to fly that's less flashy. So let's get started here. As I mentioned, I've already secured on my tail section, so all I really need to do right now is get my tubing, slide it up to the point where it's meeting the tail above the barb. And squid generally will sit in the water with their tails and tentacles slightly down at an angle. They generally do not flare out like this. They're generally pretty much straight with a slight downward curve to their legs and their tentacles. So I'll place that tubing in place. I'll grab my thread, start to gently secure it, and I'm not cranking it down because I still want to be able to position it and get it in the exact spot that I want it. And at that point, I will secure it down, trim off my tag end, and I'll do a hand whip finish. And a hand whip finish when you're working with tubing is sort of essential, because a lot of times you'll have a longer piece hanging off the front of the hook, and by doing the hand whip, you can pull the tubing inside of the loop and not have to deal with it catching on your tool or anything like that, so it becomes much easier. So I'll trim that off after I've secured it with the whip, and I'll get my Softex here and put a little drop of Softex right on those thread wraps. And of course that is going to secure the thread wraps, but it's also going to lock in the tubing when I roll it back over itself. So what I've done is I pre-cut these pieces of tubing just longer than the hook shank. So when I roll it back, I should be right about even with the tip of the hook eye. That gives me just a little bit of material to work with in case I misjudged it a little bit and I can go back a little further or whatever. In this case, I'm about where I need to be, but I am going to cut off just a little bit here. So an essential tool in dealing with tubing is a lighter. And I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to do two different things. I'm going to singe this so that when I cut this tip off, all those tiny little pieces don't go flying in the air and possibly get in your eye or something like that. I have had that done. Trust me, it's no fun. So I'm just going to trim that off. And now I'm going to get the lighter again, and this time I'm not going to singe it. I'm just going to lightly hit it. And what I'm trying to do is put little balls on the end of each one of those strands in the braid so that when I get my fly tying thread on there, it creates a stopping point such as this, and the thread doesn't continuously slide off the end of the tubing. There'll be little balls there, and it'll catch, and my thread won't keep sliding off. I'm going to push that out of the way, restart the thread, get rid of my tag end, slide this forward right into the position, do a few loose wraps, and as I'm starting to put a little bit of thread pressure, I'm going to manipulate the tubing with my fingertips and get it to lay down and be nice and round. Let all those little fibers find a spot to sit down. Otherwise, they'll want to fold over on each other and you'll have a crease. So by just gently squeezing it as you're working your thread, you can create a nice, neat nose. At this point, I'm going to do another whip. Okay. And now I'm going to get some barred zonker strip. And you can get this at any fly shop. I'm pretty sure that the Complete Angler has this in stock. And I'm just going to get a piece of this. It doesn't matter what piece it is. You just want to get regular zonker. You don't want the cross cut, just a regular straight cut zonker. That's fine. So I'm going to do this on the camera side first. So I'm going to lay this right here, grab my thread and secure it, slide it into place, secure that down. Now I'm going to turn the fly sideways, and on the hide you'll see how long the fibers are, and you want those fibers to come back and end right about where the mantle ends, right before the eye. So you have to judge that length and where you're going to cut the hide. So that's going to be roughly right here. I'm going to slide my scissors in and cut that, because I'm going to glue this to the side with some Softex, and when this is glued on, you'll see that the front wing is going to extend almost to the eye. It's right about where you want it. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing on my side of the fly. Once I get that in place, stop my thread, secure that down. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So once those are both secured in place, I'm going to do a whip finish. Finish that off. Cut my thread. The fly is almost done. And I'm going to cut this exactly in the same spot as I did the first one, so that now I have the wings of the front wings on this squid should be roughly right up to the eyes. We don't want to, we don't want to obscure the flies. We want to go right up to the end of the front part of the mantle, right in front of the eyes. Okay. So now we're going to get our Softex, and Softex is an interesting cement. It's relatively soft as it dries. In other words, it doesn't dry hard, hence its name. And the cool thing about Softex is, whoops, I got this stuck to my arm. Around the edge of the jar, up here, in time, after you open your jar, you'll develop this jelly-like Softex up here, which is thicker than the thin stuff that's in the jar. And that's going to be important for this, because we're dealing with a tubing, which is a monofilament weave, and thin will just permeate into the tubing and travel, and it's really not going to help you to adhere anything to the tubing. So you're going to want some of this thicker stuff, and I'm going to lay a bead right along the side and just laminate that hide right to the tubing. And do the same thing on this side. Get some of the thicker stuff. Here it is. Lift that up. Put a bead right here. Press that down. Now I'm going to get the thin stuff in the middle. That'll be my head cement. And boom, you're done.